About 30 years ago, I sat down with one of my first real clients as a qualified accountant, and they handed me a business plan. It was 47 pages long. It had beautiful financial projections, market analysis. It had a SWOT table. And when I asked them, "Have you looked at this recently?" They said, "Honestly, Paul, I haven't opened it since the bank approved my loan." It was that moment, that honest, slightly embarrassed answer. It sent me on a 30-year journey to figure out what business planning actually needs to look like for small business owners who are too busy running their business to run the plan. So today, I want to share everything I've learned in the last 30 years. So, welcome back to the Business Behind Your Business. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and today I'm doing a solo episode on a topic that is close to my heart and genuinely something I believe can change the trajectory of your business, but only if you take it seriously. So, we're talking about business planning, but not the version you've heard before, not the 40-page document that satisfies a bank and then collects digital dust. I want to talk about the method I've developed working with small, medium business owners over the past 30 years. Real businesses, real challenges, real results that, look, it's fundamentally changed how I approach this with every client I work with. And look, I want to be clear about what you're going to get from today's episode because I think it's important to set that expectation up front. By the time we finish today, you're going to understand exactly why traditional business plans, they almost always fail. And it's not the reason people think. You're going to have a clear framework for what a business plan actually needs to do for a small business owner. And you're going to hear about a tool I've been building and refining specifically for business owners like you. And look, it is a one-page plan, but it's not just a one-page plan. It's the full planning system that sits around it. Now, this is one of those episodes where, look, if you're not driving, I'd encourage you to take out a notepad, grab a pen. Look, I'm going to give you some real practical content. It's coming your way. So let's get stuck into it today. So let me start with the question that's at the heart of everything. Why do most business plans fail? And when I say fail, I don't mean the business fails. I mean the plan itself stops being useful. Look, it gets filed away. It stops being referenced. It stops doing the job it was supposed to do. Okay. And look, in my experience, there are three main reasons this happens, and they're all connected. The first reason is the complexity. Traditionally, business planning templates, the kind that you find on government websites, the kind that banks ask for, the kind that the business schools teach, they're built for a completely different purpose than what you, running your business, need them to do. They're built to satisfy lenders and investors. They're documents of persuasion, not documents of navigation. And so they end up being long and detailed and full of sections that are genuinely, look, they're only useful for a bank's credit committee, but almost completely useless to you on Tuesday morning when you're trying to figure out what to focus on this week. So the second reason is that they're static. A traditional business plan, it's written at a point in time. It captures the world as it was when you wrote it. Your assumptions about the market, your projections, they're all based on the conditions that may have already changed by the time you finish your plan. You know, your strategy as it existed before your three biggest competitors all shifted their pricing last quarter. And if the plan hasn't moved, when that business moves, it becomes irrelevant. And as soon as it becomes irrelevant, it doesn't get used. It's as simple as that. The third reason, number three, and this is the one I think is most important, there's no actual operating system around the plan. A business plan without a rhythm is like a GPS without signal. It might know where you want to go, but it's got no idea where you are right now, and it can't recalculate when you take a wrong turn. The plan needs a system, a regular discipline of checking in, reviewing, adjusting, and using the plan as a genuine management tool. And look, without that system, the plan, it is just a document, a very useless document. And that's the insight that's driven everything I've been building over the past 30 years. So the traditional business plan that, often I see them, and I went through this process. So many years ago, I had to prepare a business plan outline for a client, and it was for immigration purposes. And they had to prove how their business was going to be successful and how it's going to employ so many people in Australia. And it was a great plan. It was a great plan. It was, presented really nicely. We had a lot of detailed research and justification of why it was going to succeed and how they were going to be profitable in this organization, and how they were going to create jobs and all of that. But as soon as the client actually came there, I think pretty much it got filed in the round filing cabinet and not used again. Okay. Um, it was really a document designed to get an answer, a document to persuade an outcome, but not a document to actually help them plan and navigate and operate their business on a day-to-day basis. And because it was just there to persuade and get a response, it got the response it needed. But after that point, it was useless. It was useless after that point. So they moved forward without the plan. And in fact, any of the good work we did in the plan in coming up with the strategy, because it was buried in that 40 odd page document, it wasn't an active planning tool. It wasn't a planning tool. Instead, it became a historical document. Okay. It's finished. They got the answer they needed. They've moved on. They don't need what's in that plan anymore. Okay. So it's a frustrating thing. And look, to be honest, did they get value out of that process? Well, the answer for them was, well, yes, we got the outcome we wanted. We were able to immigrate. We were able to purchase the business. We were able to start. And we wouldn't have been able to do that without that document in place. So it got that response. But if we looked at the value of actually all the effort and time and research and opportunity costs involved in us preparing that plan for them, and their time involved as well, the honest answer is that it wasn't a really useful experience. And that's why a lot of people are burned by the experience of preparing a business plan and never go back to it, because of that very thing. They spent a lot of time creating a document, but it wasn't valuable after the point. Okay, so we're going to do things differently, and we're going to shift the way that we think about this. We're going to shift the way that we think about business plans. Okay, so that story I just shared is not unusual. I've had different versions of that conversation with a lot of different clients over the years, and I've even had that conversation with bank managers and mortgage brokers and people organizing finance for business. And it's always been the same conclusion, the same realization that the plan was just there to get the outcome, which was, in that case, finance. They didn't need the plan to show them that they were going to run the business better. What they needed was a better process around how the plan evolved, but also how it was implemented and the ongoing benefits to their business. Okay. Again, going back to the traditional business plan, it was designed to persuade somebody else for an outcome that you wanted. In that case, it was getting finance. Okay. And look, business plans for finance, they're very optimistic. They're always very optimistic. They're not dealing with the here and now. They're not dealing with the real struggles that you've got. Okay. They're not dealing with the way your business looks right now, today. They're dealing with, an overly optimistic, rose-colored picture of how things are going to be, and you've done all this research, and you're going to compensate and you're going to overcome because you've done the research and you've got a strategy, but you don't actually need to implement. Nobody checks after you've got the finance whether you've actually implemented on your plan. So instead, we're going to walk through the method that I've developed over 30 years, and I'm going to say upfront that this is not theory. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is what I actually use with my clients. And it's the framework I've refined through 30 years of sitting across the table from real business owners, seeing what works, seeing what gets used, and also seeing what gets abandoned. And look, at its core, this method, it's got three components, three simple things. Three things you need before you can actually get your plan to work properly. The first thing is clarity. Clarity. You need to know very precisely what your business is, who it serves, what the problem it solves, and where it's genuinely headed. Okay, where are you headed genuinely? Not optimistic, best idea, but where are you genuinely heading with your business? Not in a vague sense, not in a we want to be the best in the market sense, but real, specific, honest clarity about the business you're building and why. The second thing is simplicity. Your plan needs to be simple enough that you will actually use it. That means it needs to be short enough to read in 5 minutes. It needs to capture your priorities, not everything, just the things that are genuinely going to move the needle, going to move your business forward. And it needs to be visual enough that you can put it on a wall or keep it open on your desktop and reference it in real time. And the third thing is the rhythm. This is the operating system piece. And perhaps this is the engine room, the heartbeat, okay? The thing that really drives the process. Your plan needs that regular heartbeat, weekly, monthly, quarterly discipline of checking in with your plan, reviewing your numbers, adjusting your priorities, and keeping the whole thing alive and relevant. Look, without this rhythm, even the best plan, it's going to get quiet. It's going to get quiet and it's not going to move forward. So clarity, simplicity, rhythm, that's effectively the method. And everything I built, including the one-page business plan and the business planning operating system, it's designed to deliver all of those things, exactly those three things for small business owners. And look, before I go deeper into each of these things, I just want to mention something quickly. If you're finding today's content valuable and you want to go even further with this, I've been building out a dedicated resource over on my other YouTube channel on Paul Sweeney Accountant. And over there, you'll be able to find some of the specific content around this one-page business plan, how to build one, what it needs to include, and how to use it as a living tool in your business. Look, I'll put the link in the show notes, so go and have a look. It's practical, it's free, and I think it'll genuinely help. Now, let's get back to the method. Let's get back to the promise of what I've said we're going to deal with today. So let's go deeper on clarity, because I think this is the piece that most business owners underestimate and the piece that causes the most problems downstream. Okay. So when I sit down with a new client, I ask them, who's your ideal customer? I want you to think about that and how you would answer that question. And I mean, really answer it, not small business owners in Australia, not people who need our service. I mean, what does your best client look like? What industry are they in? How big is their business? What specific problem do they have that you solve? And what does their life look like when that problem is unresolved? And what does it look like when you fix it? Because here's the thing. If you can't answer that question with precision, all of your marketing is going to be scattered. Your sales conversations, they're going to be inconsistent. Your team, they're not going to know who to say yes to and who to refer elsewhere. And your business plan, no matter how well you write it, it will be built on a foundation that isn't quite solid, and that's when it falls apart. So clarity is where everything starts. And in the one-page business plan framework, it's the first thing we nail down before we touch anything else. Now, clarity also extends to your goals. And here I want to say something that might push back a little on conventional business planning wisdom. Most business plans I've seen are full of goals that sound impressive, but aren't actually useful. That's right, they sound impressive and they aren't useful at all. So revenue targets without a clear pathway to get there. Market share ambitions without a clear understanding of the competitive landscape. Growth objectives that growth objectives that really nobody in the business has actually signed up to. They're actually pretty impressive goals, but they're very much pie in the sky and vague. There's no specific detail about them in terms of, okay, we want to grow profit, but what does that mean now? What does it mean in the next 90 days? We want to grow our share of the market, but what's the stepping stone? In 3 months' time, what's going to be achievable? What's the goal that we should be actually realistically achieving or are looking for? You need to have goals that are honest, specific, and connected then to the actions that you're going to take to make them real. So 3 to 5 things maximum that your business is genuinely committed to achieving. Look, in the next 12 months, not 20 things, not a wish list, but 3 to 5 things. And look, to be honest, I'm going to say just pick 3. Just pick 3, okay? Because you're running your business. You're going to be busy anyway. So just pick 3. So 3 things that you are prepared to organize your resources around, make decisions based on, and hold yourself accountable to every single quarter, so every 90 days. And that's clarity, and that changes everything when you have it. So a lot of the time, a client or a business owner, okay, and I'm talking from the client perspective because that's my business. I advise business owners, so they are my clients. Look, a client or a business owner who doesn't have clarity about their ideal customer and working, we work through this exercise with them to try and get that clarity, because if you don't have clarity about who your ideal customer is, all of your sales approach and your marketing is going to be way off target. I remember working with a client once, and we were talking about their marketing strategy. And instead of actually sitting back and defining what the marketing strategy was, well, in fact, they skipped the first step. They jumped forward. They didn't actually look at what they needed to grow with sales. They didn't look at what kinds of customers they wanted and how many customers, etc. Instead, they jumped on the bright, shiny object bandwagon. Okay, they got excited and they thought social media, Instagram, fantastic. All of our employees love it. They're on it all the time. They're sharing their stuff. It's a great way to grow. And one of the biggest problems was none of their potential customers hung out on Instagram. That's not where they spent their time. That's not how they gathered their information to make decisions. They actually made their decisions by meeting in person, having a look at your past work, inspecting it. You needed to have those face-to-face conversations. And you couldn't start those conversations on Instagram because those people weren't there. You needed another way to do it. So this client was investing a lot of time in Instagram, but none of their potential customers were going to come from there. Maybe there's some of their employees, and that's a different story, but their customers were not hanging out there. That's not how they made their decisions. All of their marketing effort was misdirected because they hadn't actually looked at who's their ideal customer and where do they come from? Where do they hang out? What are they looking for? How do they make decisions? So once we changed that, they stopped spending all their time on the Instagram marketing. They did it more, continued doing it for that employee engagement, and actually found that the Instagram was a great way of attracting the right kind of employee, but it didn't attract customers. So they had to change their marketing approach to customers. And as soon as we got that focused, the energy went not into the social media time drain, but actually went into connecting and having real conversations, getting in front of decision makers, demonstrating value. And at that point, that's how they grew the customer base. So we've got to be very clear about who our customers are. So that's one example. So being very clear about what your goals are, but how they link to the actions you need to take. Okay. So the results when you get clear are very different, very different. Okay. They're actually more aligned with you achieving your goals. And look, that's really important. It is really important. It doesn't just make your plan better. It makes every decision in your business easier. And because you've done the hard thinking up front, every other decision becomes easier. Okay. You've already done the hard work. You've created your plan, your strategy. You've determined your actions. The day-to-day decisions are easier because you can go back to that reference document. You can go back to that decision, that core decision of what we're going to do. And if the decision that you're making, the answer should be very clear based on your core objective, the core thing that you've decided in your business plan. Okay, but let's talk about simplicity, okay, and specifically one-page business plan. Why do I keep harping on this one-page business plan? One, it's a lot simpler. Obviously, one page, 47 pages, 40 plus pages, one page. It's a tool that I think is very powerful, but also underutilized. Very powerful, underutilized, particularly by small business owners right now. And the idea behind this is very simple. Everything that matters about your business, your vision, your ideal customer, your key goals, and your core strategies, your financial targets, 90-day priorities, everything is captured on a single page. One page that you can read in 5 minutes, one page that your whole team can hold in their head. They can hold it in their head. It's very clear to remember. One page that a lender can look at and immediately understand what you're building. Now, when I say this to people for the first time, I often get a reaction along the lines of, look, Paul, my business is too complex for one page. And look, I understand that instinct because we've been trained otherwise. We've been trained that we've got to have the detail, the 40 plus pages. We've got to have all the detail and background and justification. But here's what I found over 30 years. The businesses that can't describe their strategy on one page usually don't have a clear strategy. They don't have a clear strategy. They've got a lot of activity, a lot of busyness, and a lot of moving parts, but the underlying strategic clarity isn't there. And the exercise of getting it onto one page is what forces that clarity to develop. It's a discipline, it's not a limitation. And look, this one page plan concept, this idea works because of what it removes, not just what it includes, but it removes the padding. It removes the sections that are there just to impress rather than inform. It removes the complexity that makes traditional plans feel overwhelming and unavoidable. Avoidable. Okay, the failure is unavoidable, to be honest. But what's left? What's left is just the truth about your business, where it is, where it's going, and what the priorities are to get there. Now, at this point, I just want to say the one-page plan is not the end target. It's not what this whole thing is about. Okay, and it's the one-page plan, the document. That's not the result that we're after. It's what builds that plan. Okay, look, I've put a lot of work into the specific structure and format of this plan, and we're going to share the links to that. And if you're driving and don't have your pen, just remember Paul Sweeney accountant and go and look for that. Okay, just put that into your browser or wherever you search these days. Search for Paul Sweeney accountant, and you'll be steered to the right direction, right place. So I encourage you to check that out. But look, getting back to where we're at, the priority here, one page is enough. The people that tell you that a one-page plan is not enough to do on its own, they're missing a third critical component. They're missing this part, which is absolutely critical. Without this, nothing will succeed. Okay, your plan will not succeed. The reason is the one-page plan gives a lot of focus and clarity about what you need to do to move your business forward. Okay, the plan is the end result. Okay, what comes from that moment of clarity where we actually understand exactly what our business is about and who our clients are, our customers, what the business we're creating is designed to deliver to us. That journey from that point, from where we have clarity to what our plan is, which captures our actions that we're going to take, that's really powerful. Really powerful. And it helps with focus. It helps being narrowly focused, laser focused. As a business owner, you're extremely busy. You've got a lot of stuff going on. You've got a lot of pressing issues on your time. Okay, you've got family, you've got employees, you've got clients, you've got customers, you've got suppliers. You've got a lot to do. So you don't have a lot of time to focus unless you are actually able to start creating that time to focus and creating a business that works without you. So starting with just 3 things is a lot more manageable. Okay, going back to one of my clients, look, when we first started this process, we came up originally with a list of over 360 items that they wanted to put in place. Okay. And the problem with that is it's an overwhelming action list. It's overwhelming. And where do you start? And the temptation when you've got a list that big is to pick off some of the easier things to do. But those easier things are not aligned with actually what you really need to do when you've got clarity and focus on what your business needs to deliver. Okay, they're often the bright, shiny objects which distract, not give focus. So working with this client with over 360 items, we narrowed it down to 10, or we came down to the top 10. The 10 items that had the biggest priority in terms of moving their business forward, helping them actually turn around a really bad situation. They'd gone from a small profit to $500,000 loss in 1 year because they lost focus. So we're helping them re-engage, helping them refocus on what was really important to the business. So they said, no, 3 items is not enough. We can get 10. And I said, no, just pick 3. Anyway, they won that argument. They took 10. But after a month, I said to them, look, how many of those items have you actually implemented? And they said, none. I said, why not? I said, well, we didn't know which one to start with, and we didn't have time, and we just got busy. So we corrected that situation, got them back. Here are the 3 things, 1, 2, 3, that we're going to focus on. What are we going to do to get that done? Who's going to be allocated to them? What resources do you need? What time? Book the time in, get it done. And within the next month, they'd done those 3 things. It was achievable. They had focus. They had clarity. It wasn't a complex situation. We narrowed it down to 1 page, limited the things that they needed to focus on, took away that decision fatigue, took away that distraction, the disruption. And the outcome that followed was amazing. They went from a $500,000 loss to a $400,000 profit. What I'm saying here is that the plan, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 page or 40, it's only going to be as good as the system that's driving it, that's keeping it alive. And that's the most important thing. The third thing, the final component here. So this piece, the rhythm piece, okay, the operating system, this is the piece that most business owners and honestly most business advisors, business coaches, they miss this entirely. And without it, everything else is going to fall apart. The clarity fades, the 1-page plan gets filed, the 40-page plan, let's not go there. And 6 months later, you're back to running your business by instinct and hoping for the best. So what does rhythm actually look like? So let me give you an example of a simple structure. So each week we have a brief check-in with your numbers, not a deep dive, just 15 minutes. Cash position, outstanding invoices, key expenses, just enough to stay connected to the financial pulse of your business. And look, you can't manage the things that you don't measure, and you can't measure what you don't look at. So we need to get into this regular rhythm of looking at our numbers weekly. Each month, we're going to do a proper review, sit down with your profit and loss, your cash flow statement, your revenue trend, and compare actuals against your plan. Where are you ahead? Where are you behind? And critically, what do you need to do to adjust? It's not a time to panic, though. You don't panic about the variances. It's time to understand them and respond with an intelligent response, not a panic response. Each quarter is when you do your strategic reset. You go back to your 1-page plan. Are your goals still the right goals? Have the priorities shifted? What did you commit to at the start of the quarter, and what did you deliver? And this 90-day rhythm. It keeps your plan alive because every 90 days you have the opportunity to recalibrate based on what's actually happening in your business right now. And annually, look, after every 4 quarters, we're going to do a full rebuild. Every year, we're going to revisit the whole plan, the vision, the ideal customer, the goals, strategies. Why are we doing that? Because your business evolves, markets change, and your plan needs to evolve with them. Okay. And look, it's a little bit radical. I know, I understand. It's not what a lot of traditional business planning is about, but that's the operating system that I've been working with clients through over the past 30 years. And look, to be honest, one of the objections is it's not complicated enough, but it doesn't need to be complicated, but it does have to be consistent. The value in this exercise comes from the discipline, not the brilliance of one single planning session or how great your plan looks when you present it. It's that regular attention, regular focus that makes a difference. And that's something I've seen consistently across hundreds of clients over 30 years. So once we get into that regular rhythm, we've got clarity, we've got simplicity, we've got that rhythm, it makes everyday decisions so much easier. Everyday decisions become easier. And that stress that you're feeling as an overworked, underpaid, underprofitable business, trapped in your business, that pain just starts to disappear because you've got that focus and you're focusing on the things that are actually going to improve your business, grow your business, create a better business, which gives you more freedom. Okay, so we have to start somewhere. And look, that is one of the things I find a lot of business owners struggle with is actually starting that process. And that's the power of the system that I've been creating or that I've created. And the value is there. The results have been there. I've seen clients go through this process, and it's not just the financial result that's changed. It's how they are, their well-being, their health, their outlook, their level of stress certainly improved. Okay, because they've got a business that's actually a lot more enjoyable. It's not stress. It's not creating problems for them. It's actually providing freedom for them. And that's something I get excited about. So look, everything I've just walked through here, this clarity framework, one-page plan, the operating system, I've taken all of that, and it is in a structured course that you can work through at your own pace. It's called the Business Planning Operating System. It's now available. And look, I want to be upfront about this because of why I've built it, because over 30 years, I've seen the same pattern over and over again. Business owners who know they need to do better planning, they need to have better actions, they need to be accountable, and they want to do this. They've got a genuine intention, but they don't have a clear step-by-step system to follow. And so they don't follow through on it. And they end up repeating the cycle of stress, low profit, no growth business. And we want to avoid that. We want to take you from where you are now to with no plan, no system, no way of getting out of this trap that you're in, and helping you create that business going forward, having a definite plan, a simple plan, one that you can implement. So take a look at that. There is some information. Look, there's more information available on the Paul Sweeney Accountant website and channel. Go there, find out the links in the show notes. And to be honest, it's a small investment in your time and energy. A small investment. Look, the value that you're going to get out of this process will be far, far in excess of your investment of time and cost. And big thing is you're going to have clarity. Okay, clarity and results. So we started today by asking why most business plans fail. And look, the answer isn't that planning is pointless. It's the approach that most people take to planning. It doesn't match the reality of running a small business. And traditional plans, they're too long, too static, too disconnected from how you run your business on a day-to-day basis. And without that system around your plan, it becomes irrelevant before you even print it. Like I said, the method I've developed over 30 years, which I've just gone through briefly, it's built around three key things: clarity, precise, honest understanding of what your business is and who it serves, where it's genuinely going, simplicity, just a one-page plan that captures everything that matters in a format you'll actually use, and the rhythm, a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual discipline that keeps your plan alive and relevant as your business evolves. So those three things together, and I want to be clear, it's the combination that matters, not any one of them in isolation. That combination is going to give you something powerful and a strategic advantage that every small business owner needs. Clarity about where you are, clarity about where you're going and what you need to do next. Not in theory, not in practice, every week. And look, here's what I want you to do after today's episode. I don't want you to go away and write a 40-page business plan. I want you to do one thing: pull out a piece of paper or open a blank document and answer this question. What are the three most important things my business needs to achieve in the next 12 months? Just three. Write them down, be specific, and then ask yourself, is everything I'm doing this week actually moving me towards those three things? And that's the starting point. That's where clarity begins. And from there, everything else in the method builds. So if you found today's episode valuable, if it's got something you're going to take away and actually use, I'd love it if you would share it with another business owner who needs to hear it. We're trying to help as many business owners as we can, and your sharing of this information, this episode, the content here, it genuinely matters. And don't forget, head over to Paul Sweeney Accountant website, as well as the Business Behind Your Business website. But on that Paul Sweeney Accountant website, you can find your one-page business plan, your free one-page business plan template, the resources, and the operating system course is there available now, and all the links are in the show notes below. So until next time, thank you for joining us, thank you for listening, and keep growing the business of your dreams. That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.